Let's bring in former U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Kurt Volker. Kurt, you and I have talked in the past about how, words always used to matter, okay? Now you've got a man with historic hyperbole, okay? And yet everybody wants to use this as a benchmark of what you should expect if Trump becomes president again. Do you think that the allies and the infrastructure in the United States would allow Trump to even approach a situation the way he's suggesting in front of the faithful?
Well, so many layers to this, Chris, that you have to think about. First off, what was he doing? He was at a campaign rally, a political rally, and he was bragging about what he says that he did when he was president. We have no idea if he really said that or not, but he's just bragging about it to say, hey, as you said, I'm a tough guy, vote for me. But that said, words still do have a meaning. Words still do matter. Our European allies are actually very close to Russia's war against Ukraine. Poland has beefed up its defense spending to 4% of GDP, 40 billion euros for a newly democratized country, 30 years since its independence. And they are 30 years since its removal of the communist system. They are spending on their defense because they believe the threat is real. And what makes NATO work is the belief that everybody is in together so that no one will dare attack. And here he is saying that he was encouraging somebody to attack. So I don't know that it means that he would do this again as president. I mean, who knows what he would do as president. But I think that these words have an immediate impact today on how our European allies look at the world and look at the United States.
What would happen if Donald Trump were to succumb to the right-wing reservations about the Ukraine war and restrict aid or pull away? What is your biggest concern?
Well, the biggest concern is that Vladimir Putin, if he's given the opportunity, will overthrow the Ukrainian government, install a puppet government there, take part of the territory and annex it to Russia, and then rebuild his military and his intelligence and other capabilities, and then do it again. And when he talks about the Russian Empire, well, no,
I saw him with Tucker Carlson. Putin said he doesn't want to do that.
Two different things here. First off, I watched the Tucker Carlson interview, and what Putin said is that Russian lands are Russian lands. And when he talks about Ukraine, he claims Ukraine doesn't actually really exist as a country, never really existed. When it was founded in 800, that was actually founding Russia. Ukraine had nothing to do with it. And so when he talks about restoring Russian lands, well, Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, and Finland,
all the same thing.
They were all Russian lands at one time.
Yep.
Arizona and Texas were Mexican lands at one time. We would not look at them today and say, well, that's okay. Okay, they're Mexico. No. And so what Putin is doing is laying a justification for taking more.
Right. Look, I mean, this is why, again, I'm not part of the cabal of saying who gets to interview who. I don't care. I think more access is better. But this is a man who says things and they are just not true. And his intentions have shown us the exact opposite, that this is all he wants. Kurt Volker, to be continued. Thank you for giving a reasonable sense to the reality. Hey, thank you for watching. Please go to newsnationnow.com, newsnationnow.com, and you can find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button down below. Then you will get more of NewsNation's fact-driven coverage.